this challenge, I attempted a Deltarune playthrough only using Kris. That means whenever I had any other party members, I could not use them to progress any fights. That means I would have to spare non-spareable enemies, defend, or use the manual. How difficult would Deltarune become if I could only use Kris? Stick to the end to find out. And also, if you enjoy my content and want to see more Deltarune videos, please consider subscribing. It's completely free and helps this channel out more than you could ever imagine. The run starts as usual. Meeting Susie, leaving Susie, meeting Susie, then fighting Lancer. Lancer, being the first enemy, was as easy as ever, and I just had to either fight him or survive until the fight ends. I decided that I would mainly be fighting monsters this run, but I would occasionally spare a few. Make my way through the Great Door, I tried my best to avoid any encounters, and avoiding I did. My first main battle was against the Haphies, and since their attack is ridiculously easy, I got through in one piece. After reuniting with Susie for the 7th time in the past 5 minutes, I started collecting the Jevil keys and making my way to the castle. Chapter 1 of Deltarune really doesn't have much going for it, apart from being forced to let Susie help me in the fight against the Jigsaw guys. I really wish I could have avoided that so it was actually like Susie and Ralsei abandoning Kris, but what can I do when I don't know how to code mods? Making my way across the Great Board, I came face to face with K-Round, which is one of those encounters where you can't win by fighting. So I just used Kris's normal bow act and slowly made my way through the fight. With Susie actually abandoning us, I went to the forest and dodged every encounter there was. It only took like 4 minutes to collect the second broken key and make my way to the Susie and Lancer fight. And speaking of that fight, I thought it'd be funny if I constantly attacked Susie until she was down before actually fighting Lancer. It took way longer to finish the fight, but it was fun, so I really don't care. When entering the castle, I instantly went down to fight Jevil. Unlike Spamton and Neo, I was actually confident that I could beat him with only Kris. But I was completely wrong as I died several times. This is just one of those fights for me that is both extremely easy, but also really easy to screw up on. It's just like Sans and Undertale. I did, however, make sure that I was at least prepared to take a lot of damage in this fight. I stocked up on Dark Burgers and got the top cake before unlocking the door, just in case I was struggling. And that was probably my smartest decision in this run so far. Something funny that I noticed in this fight was that I was dealing so little damage that I wouldn't be progressing the phases very quickly. After about 5 deaths during the final phase, which was really annoying by the way, I finally made my way past the fight and acquired the Devil's Knife that Kris couldn't even use. This is a waste of my time, wasn't it? The next step was to fight Karen again, which was essentially the exact same as the last fight with it. And then it was time for the king. And this was just like the first fight with Lancer. I just have to survive the fight for long enough. I tried to end the fight quicker. I was just dealing way too little damage for that to even be possible. With King out of my way, Kris stealed the fountain, and I fell into the cyberworld. Something about Chapter 2 is that when you fight monsters, your HP actually increases. So the more I fought monsters, the easier the challenge would become. That being said, I still dodged most encounters and just ended up fighting the bosses instead. The arcade machine had no impact on the actual challenge, so let's just skip over that. And the first real boss of Chapter 2 was against the Sweet Cap and Cakes. And I never knew until now that this fight worked just like Chara in Chapter 1, where you have to use your axe to end the fight. I guess I just never tried to attack them before, but it was still a neat discovery. And I think this is a good time to mention that I will not be fighting Spamton Neo in this run. With how long Jevil took, and how much more difficult Spamton is, I don't think I could beat him with just Kris. I mean, I definitely could beat him if I tried long enough, but that's the thing. I didn't even try. Spamton Neo isn't required to finish the main story though, so I just didn't think about it and moved on. The next fight was against Berdly. I know it was time to prove to him that Kris could beat him in a fair 1v1. And it was both easy and difficult. Some attacks are surprisingly difficult to dodge if you're in the wrong spot, such as the paper attack, but luckily for me, the attacks targeted Susie and Ralsei and not Kris. I wish I could code so I could just remove them from battles altogether, but we'll just have to deal with this for now. Now it was time to really be alone for a bit. And then I proceeded to just dodge every encounter, except the pop-ups, but they were easy so it didn't even matter. I never noticed until now just how short it is between the first and second Berdly fight. This fight was a real challenge though. When Berdly calls in his allies, I can't use Noelle to instantly get rid of them, and so I decided that it would be fun to do the fight without getting rid of them. It definitely made the fight much harder, up to the point where I actually needed to spend a turn to heal, but I still made it through on my first attempt. Only like 2 minutes later, I was fighting Spamton. Unlike the last challenge, when I almost died, I made it through without taking any damage. In the Queen's Mansion, I actually ended up losing a couple fights. The fight with the Swashlings if you break the pottery were very difficult for some reason, and I ended up dying to them. Next fight I almost died again, but I managed to defeat them. The next roadblock was the Task Manager. I tried to answer the questions based off of memory, and I instantly screwed up. That cost me yet another death. Next attempt though, I remembered the answers correctly, and just spared them. Roadblock number 3 was the mouse wheel. I initially tried to fight them, I was just dealing way too little damage to finish the fight quickly, so I just went with sparing them instead. The final encounter was against the Werewire, where I decided to fight it no matter how long it would take. And I nearly died. The last fight was against Queen, which went by fairly quickly. Like with Jevil, I was dealing so little damage that I would see attacks that I've never seen before. Like, what the hell is this? But after dealing enough damage, Berdly broke free from her control, burnt his wing, and the challenge ended. Now you may be wondering why I didn't end up fighting Giga Queen for the finale, and that's because you only use one character in that fight, so it really doesn't make any difference in this run. And with that, thanks for watching until the end, and I'll see you next video.